Hello, goblins. It's Chris, Eldritch Pipes. It's an episode of this week's Pipes. And a little bit early too, because tomorrow and probably over the weekend we're going to be a bit busy. So I thought I'd do it early, rather than not do it at all, for sure. I'm smoking. Well, okay. I was delving into the tobacco cellar to see if there was something lying around I hadn't smoked for a bit. And there was. Sutliff crumble cake. The Red Virginia. It's been in the tin for a little while. I literally dusted it off. But it was, these tins are really good at preserving, even once they're popped. Pretty good at preserving tobacco. And it really was. I wouldn't say absolutely perfect. Maybe just a hair dry, but flavour-wise, it's great. And today, I'm drinking this intriguing gin called, if you can see, Twisted Nose. Fabulous bottle. Sort of seafoam green. And it's great. I think it's like the gin's got watercress in it. It's really hard to say what it does to the flavour, but it does something to the flavour. It's very unique. And yeah, I've been enjoying that one too. Now I'll be interested. This week on Netflix I was watching a limited series called Painkiller. And it's based on the Sackler family, Purdue, and the creation of OxyContin, and the sort of opioid pandemic that happened in the States. And it's really quite a, what would be the word? Harrowing tale of morally bankrupt elites taking advantage of everyone. Now, I guess that's not an original story in itself. People are people, and they do what they do. But this is a particularly egregious example, and I was just wondering, for those of you guys in the States, how many of you knew someone who had taken OxyContin, or even if you'd taken OxyContin yourself, and what was that like? Did it cause any long-term issues? Because, you know, it's one thing to hear the story of the nation, if you like, but it's another to hear people's own accounts, or, you know, how much did it impact the population as a whole? It'd be really interesting to know. Yeah, it's a grim tale, no matter how you look at it. And yeah, there's a lot to think about. All right. Now, onto pipes. 3 different shapes this week, and no acorn. Which was kind of odd because my plan was actually to make 3 acorns. I was going to just make a boatload of them this week. But it just didn't pan out that way. But I was pleased with the results. It's a Zulu. It's been not too long since I've made a Zulu. I make a Zulu reasonably frequently, but they're definitely slightly less common than my normal shapes. So the acorns and the strawberries and the Viking horns, weeding pipes, slender man. Those pipes I make on a very frequent basis. Although the slender man has taken a bit of a back seat at the moment. Sometimes he's very popular, but not quite at the moment. But the Zulu is a favourite of mine. It's quite an awkward shape to make. It's the only shape I make with an oval shank. Zulus have oval shanks. Or at least proper Zulus only have oval shanks. I suppose technically you can make a Zulu with a round shank, but it doesn't look quite right. It's something else if it's got a round shank, I think. Then it's more like a bent billiard, I suppose. A really bent billiard, but going off in the opposite direction. So it's a kind of bit all wrong. A heavily forward canted billiard. As you can see, the shank starts at the width of the bowl and then tapers down to the stem. And then, for artistic flair, you can do either one of two things. The Rad Davis version kind of tapers all the way down to the button. It's very gradual, but that's what it does. Mine tapers to about here and then slightly flares out to the button again. Because the sort of fishtail is my preferred shape. One of the reasons it's quite awkward is because, say, unlike a billiard where both the transition and the chin of the bowl are relative. Okay, so the chin of the billiard is fairly bit less loose than the transition radius. There's some kind of harmony between the two. They're both quite sharp turns. Whereas, say, in a horn, that they both lines sweep. In a Zulu, you have like a really open radius here, and then it comes in relatively, I would say, unexpectedly tight. Looser than a billiard, obviously, but unexpectedly tight at the transition. When you're making it, you almost feel like you want to go a bit like a horn, and you have to remember you've got to tighten it up. Just one of those things. Blast from this came out quite nice. Oh, I'll put you down. You can see the ring grain. You can see the orientation of the block. The ring grains cutting across like that. The straight grain kind of going at that angle here. bit of plateau made it onto the rim. And you can sort of see that the reflection doing the same thing here, the ring grain going off on this direction. Such an interesting shape to make. It's just, it's one of those shapes that every time I make it, it still requires like my full attention. You can't just rattle them off. I guess I just don't make enough of them. It's like each time it's re-remembering. It's just the way it is. Unlike this next shape. Viking horn. Could probably make these in my sleep now. Really open lines, but distinct distinct, but I was going to say subtle. Maybe subtle is not the word. Lithe would be the word. Kind of like stretched out S. But it's just really pleasing having the two lines start, you know, at this open point, like this size at the bowl, at the rim of the bowl, coming all the way down to the button. It's just a very pleasing thing to do. And I did a black bowl, a black stain on this guy. What did I do? It was cordovan for the Zulu. With black and orange Cumberland. Kind of interesting piece, like really wide features on this one. What's the grain doing? The ring grain cutting across that way. Straight grain fanning over there. So you can imagine the bottom of or the centre of the burl being somewhere there. Again, nice medium blast. Pretty deep bowls on these. I wish I had my calipers here and I would measure them. But pretty deep. I think these guys are as deep as reading pipes. I think they're like 2 inches. Pretty sure. And then this last one is the surprise pipe of the week. I've done a stout Dublin twice before, and I was aiming for this to be the third. but even more stout than the other two. I don't know where this experiment is going to end. The rod that I cut this from could go wider. So the shank diameter of the previous two has been 24 millimeter. This is 28. And I could go further than that. I think if I go further, I'll make the shank a bit shorter to compensate. That seems to feel right. The thicker the shank, the shorter the shank, and balance it out with a slender stem. I'm really enjoying these. I don't even quite know what to call them. These kind of saddle taper stems. This part is like just a normal taper stem, but then it's saddled in from the, I don't know what to call them, but anyway. But it's a really, I went pretty dark on the stain. I really wanted the grain to be kind of dramatic. So you can see the grain sort of, the light grain just sort of peeking out between the dark bands. A lot of plateau on the rim. So you can see how the bowl it tapers down, but then it just tapers in for the rim. I think I did it, when I was shaping, it was to stop it feeling too blobby, would be a word I might reach for. But in the same, like the treatment on the chin, I did, if you can see, it's got just an angle to it. Rather than, I suppose it could have been a sharp angle. That didn't feel quite right. And rounding it off would have felt, again, too blobby. So I just did this kind of almost sort of chamfer on the chin. And paired with this kind of burnt orange swirl, which is the only rod that I've done so far in the 34 millimeter. So unless I cast some new resin soon, which I might do, the only 34 millimeter I've got is the burnt orange, but it's really lovely. Nice accent against this kind of like heavy dark bowl. There you go. Smooth, super stout Dublin. Yeah, he's eaten all the pork pies. All right. That's it. That's this week's pipes. You've seen them. I'll be back next week. Yeah, I think next week's a normal pipe making week, as far as I know. So, yeah, I'll be back then. Till next time, take it very easy. Your loyal pipe maker.